This edition of the Bio Report is brought to you by the California Technology Council, providing discounts on products and services essential to every startup. For more information, visit californiatechnology.org/member benefits. I'm Daniel Levine, and this is the Bio Report. The problem of counterfeit and falsified medicines is not just an economic problem for the pharmaceutical industry, but also a public health threat. TruTag Technologies is seeking to address the problem with its nano-scale technology that allows drug makers to encode information on individual doses of medication to authenticate a drug and provide details on its origin and intended markets. We spoke to Barry McDonough, Senior Vice President of Business Development for TruTag, about the technology, how it works, and how it can address a global health concern. Barry, thanks for joining us.
Delighted to be here, Danny.
We're going to talk about TruTag, the problem with counterfeit and gray market pharmaceuticals, and how TruTag's technology can address the problem. Let's start with the problem itself, though. The term counterfeiting is used to describe really a wide range of issues. What does that include?
So, yes, the term counterfeiting relates to the representation of false products as authentic products in the supply chain. Usually these products, at best case, are just placebos, so they contain no active pharmaceutical ingredients. But at worst case, they could contain anything from heavy metals to poison.
At the same time, though, I take it there are sometimes, because of an arbitrage in drug pricing, that you see drugs produced for one market end up being sold in another market, and they may be out of date and have lost potency. Is that an issue as well?
Yes, that is also an issue. So usually we distinguish between counterfeiting, which is the first problem that I described, and the second then is diversion. So that arbitrage issue relates to diversion. So it could be a product that was meant to be sold in Europe is repatriated to the US market where it's sold at a higher price. Now the problem with that is that when that happens, it may not be subject to the correct storage conditions that are required.
From a pharmaceutical industry point of view, how big a problem is this?
So from a counterfeiting perspective, it's very difficult to put a number on it. I've heard estimates of anywhere from 70 billion to 200 billion plus. So there's a wide range in the estimates, and the problem is that most of counterfeiting goes undetected. Most people will think that in Western economies it would be below half, where counterfeit products represent below 0.5% of the pharmaceuticals in the supply chain. In developing countries, that can be anywhere up to 30 to 50% of the supply chain.
Well, from a public health point of view, what concerns do governments, regulatory agencies, or healthcare providers have about the authenticity of drugs? Do they pose more of an economic threat to the industry, or is there a public health concern here as well?
Well, I think the main concern is the safety of the consumer. So it's interesting. You know, counterfeiting has existed for a very, very long time, from the dawn of day, where Roman coins used to be counterfeit. In more recent years, the issue has been that counterfeiters have moved from things like DVDs and handbags to goods that can really impact the safety of consumers. So things like airbags and food stuffs and indeed pharmaceuticals, and anything then that has an impact on consumer safety is going to get the attention of the regulators, and that's why there's been an increasing focus on this issue.
Well, there have been some efforts to date to provide means within the supply chain to verify the authenticity of pharmaceuticals. How is this generally done today, and how effective have these efforts been?
Yeah, that's very true. So regulatory bodies around the world have mandated serialization technology. And serialization technology is where you essentially move from the identification of the good on a batch level towards the identification of the good on a production instance level. And that rollout is taking place at the moment. The current rollout of that serialization technology. Unfortunately, what happens is when anything's mandated, a government has to mandate a proprietary technology. It has to mandate an open technology so that a lot of different vendors are able to implement that technology. Now, the problem with that is while serialization track and trace is absolutely a big step forward, it's very easy to replicate a serial number. You can crack the serialization code sequentially, or on an individual basis, you can scan a serial number and then just reproduce it. And then if somebody goes to authenticate it in the supply chain, it can be then authenticated as a genuine product. So it's a great step forward that they've taken, but it's by no means perfect.
Well, let's talk about TruTag's approach, which doesn't seek to authenticate drugs through packaging, but embeds information contained on the drug itself by using microtags incorporated to a drug's coding. Can you explain how it works?
Yes. I would describe TruTag as the gold standard in terms of in product security. So TruTags are essentially nanoporous silicon dioxide, and nanopore silicon dioxide or pore silicon dioxide is an excipient that's been found in foods and pharmaceuticals, or has been used as an excipient in foods and pharmaceuticals for a very, very long time. So it's not a new material. It's been used as sort of an anticoagulant agent in foods and pharmaceutical production for decades. It works by preventing clumping of materials. So what we do is we take this material, and this porous silicon dioxide, and we essentially etch a lattice structure into the material. So we take something that's already in food and pharmaceuticals, but the difference being is that we etch this lattice structure into it. Think of it really as a honeycomb structure, and then we shine light in a proprietary imager that we have on that honeycomb structure. And as that light shines on that, it reflects that light back at a particular spectral index. And that is really how our technology works. So we have a lock and we have a key. The lock are these tags, these microscopic tags that we manufacture with a custom code on them. And then the key then is the imager that we use that shines light on those tags and then decodes the spectral index that comes back from them.
And what type of information can you actually encode on a pill that way?
We can encode anything. Essentially, the way to think about the tags are they're an edible optical memory. So it's an edible barcode. So the information that we link to that tag can be anything. It could be from what the product is, where it was manufactured, the time that it was manufactured, the country that it was meant to be in, or even something as widespread as prescribing information for a patient.
And how easily can that encoded information be read? How expensive or portable is the equipment you'll need to read it?
So the technology that we use today is designed for B2B authentication, which means it'll only be the customer or stakeholders in the supply chain that are designated by the customer to authenticate the technology. So pharmacies or hospitals or distributors. We do have on our roadmap the next stage of our reader development is to migrate this technology into a cell phone. So that is conceptually where we want to go to. And when that becomes a reality, you can then see a scenario where anyone in the supply chain or any customer can authenticate a tag, a pharmaceutical pill, or tags in a pharmaceutical pill in the market.
And the material you're using today to encode, this is actually used to coat drugs already today?
It's used as an excipient in drugs today already. Yeah, so it's already present. So from an FDA perspective, the material is classified as GRAS, which means it's generally recognized as safe. And as long as there isn't more than 2% of the silicon dioxide in a pharmaceutical pill by weight, there's absolutely no concern. And from our perspective, the amount that we add is about 0.01%. So we're not we don't add our tags in large amounts. Our tags are microscopic. They're anywhere between 50 to 100 microns.
Well, what does a manufacturer need to incorporate it into its manufacturing process?
Yeah, that's a great question. Whenever anyone is looking to add a security feature to a product, one of the biggest costs is the requirement to re-engineer a business process to incorporate the tag into a tag or whatever the feature is into their product. What we've looked to do within the pharmaceutical space is make it very easy for our customers. We actually go into the coating, either the base coating or the over coating of the pill. So essentially what we do is we will run a quick technical evaluation with the pharmaceutical company, and we'll determine how many tags per pill we need to have to ensure authentication and to ensure the uniformity of distribution of our tags on a per pill basis. And once we've run through that process with the pharmaceutical company, we just add our tags to the coating, and our tags are applied through the normal coating process.
And does this significantly add to the cost of a pill?
No, it's a very, very economic solution. Typically we're looking at a fraction of a cent on a per pill basis.
Are there regulatory issues you need to go through to incorporate these nano tags into the manufacturing process? You mentioned that FDA recognizes these as generally safe, but is there any kind of clearance a drug maker would go through if they wanted to incorporate this?
Yes. So there's guidelines issued, PCID guidelines issued by the FBI. So the PCID is physical chemical identifier, and they've laid out the steps that are required by any manufacturer to utilize identifiers on a product. Because our technology is in the category, the minimal potential risk category, and that's because it's already classified as GRAS, and because it has it's used in the coat or the outer release section of the pill. And what that means is that pharmaceutical manufacturers, they just have to add a small annual reportable change, and that's the only change that they have to do.
Were you actually in terms of putting this into the marketplace?
This quarter will actually be our first product will be in the supply chain with our tags. It's actually a nutraceutical rather than a pharmaceutical, and we'll be in the market in Q3. We have another customer coming on. Our first pharmaceutical customer will be coming online in 2018, and we have several other customers who are engaging in technical evaluations at the moment of that initial early stage trial to determine how many tags need to be applied per pill. So we're starting to see adoption in the market. Usually the pharmaceutical market can be a little bit slow to adopt new technologies, and rightly so, because anything that is going into a patient, ingested by patients, has to be rigorous trials done on it. But we've got to a point now where we're starting to see this adoption. We see their competitors putting the gold standard of technology onto their pharmaceutical pills. They look to follow suit. Nobody wants to be the first, but now that we've overcome that, So that's a challenge. We're starting to see good adoption now.
And as you look across markets here, where do you see the biggest opportunity for this technology?
The application of our tags is essentially endless. We can put it on anything from a piece of art to an orange, and it really depends on where the problem lies. And so we very much focus today with two areas of application. We focus on pharmaceutical, nutraceuticals as one category, and on secure labels as another. So we actually look to augment some of the efforts that are being done on serialization to put an added layer of security into packaging as well.
So we largely talked about pills, but does this have an application in biologics as well?
It does. Typically on biologics, we'd be looking to actually mark vials in which, or the packaging in which they're stored. Rather than, because there's not an easy application process for biologics, but typically we would go on an adhesive on a vial.
So I imagine to the naked eye, this would be virtually undetectable.
It is indeed, yeah. It's a covert technology. So the tags, as I mentioned earlier, they're clear in color, and they're about 50 to 100 microns in size, so they're smaller than a particle of dust.
We talked about this as an authentication technology, but it's quite interesting in that this may have other significant applications within the pharmaceutical industry, namely with drug delivery. Can you explain where you are in terms of using it for that and how it can benefit drug delivery?
Yeah, this has been sort of an interesting surprise we got towards the end of last year. As I mentioned earlier on, our technology works by essentially etching a honeycomb structure into the surface of our tags, and we leave that empty. So we just have that honeycomb lattice structure, and then we shine the light on that, and it sends back that spectral index. What we have found is we were approached by a biotechnology company last year, and they've asked us to work with them on rather than leaving that honeycomb, those pores empty, we're essentially filling those with active pharmaceutical ingredients. And then we're taking the tags themselves and injecting them into the body. And the tags then become essentially a long-acting injectable or a controlled release medical device. So the material porous silicon is perfectly suited for this because it's biodegradable. It degrades down into orthosilic acid in the body, and it is a perfect material for the delivery of a therapeutic payload into the body.
So is there an example of how this might benefit the application of a drug?
Yeah, absolutely. So our porous silicon is used widely as a material. Our unique selling point really is the ability to control the size of the pores. So we have to control the size of the pores for our anti-counterfeiting solution, and being able to have such control over the size of the pores allows the addition of different proteins. So different APIs can be placed in, and essentially then as these tags are in the body, they break down over time and they release the active pharmaceutical ingredient from these pores. So we've been able to already prove out with our partner, we've been able to prove out anywhere between a 4 to 6 month delivery of the pharmaceutical payload. And this was just in the first use case that we were looking at. We believe we can do that for anywhere up to a year.
Barry McDonough, Senior Vice President of Business Development for TruTag. Barry, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much, John. It's been a pleasure to be on the show.
Thanks for listening. The Bio Report is a production of the Levine Media Group. To automatically download this podcast each week, subscribe to our RSS feed or through iTunes or other podcast manager. To join our mailing list, go to levinemediagroup.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to drop us a line or are interested in sponsoring this podcast, send email to danny@levinemediagroup.com. Special thanks to Jonah Levine, who composed our theme music, and the Jonah Levine Collective, which performs it.